Hello there. Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to ask a short favor. If you're interested in either of the two books that I have written and am about to release, head on over to my website at theanxioustruth.com/books. There you can learn about both books, one of which is free, and you can get on my mailing list to be notified when each book is released and how you can get it. I would really appreciate that. Okay, let's get rolling. Hey, what's up, guys? Drew here, thatanxietyguy.com. How many times has Holly heard me say that? Many now. What's up, Holly? Back with Holly, live from Majorca. Is it beautiful?
Hey. It's beautiful, yeah.
It's early in the morning here, and it's freaking freezing, so enjoy the warm weather. You're sitting outside. I hear birds. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
If you're quiet here, you'll hear the heater that I have running in my office because it's so goddamn cold. I can't stand it. So today we are going to talk to a different group of people. So if you usually watch us, because you're dealing with panic and anxiety and agoraphobia and all that stuff, go make yourself a pot of tea or something and get your husband or wife or mom or dad or best friend or whoever is important in your life and tell them to come watch this video because we're going to talk to them.
Yeah, this isn't for you.
Yeah. I mean, it is. Watch along with them, and fist pump when we say good stuff that you like. But this is a video for people who are living with and have relationships with and are, have close relationships, are friends with people who have anxiety disorders, panic disorder, agoraphobia, recurring panic attacks, OCD, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk to you. So if that's your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, your best friend, your parent, your sister, your sibling, whoever, if there's somebody close to you in your life that is dealing with these issues, then we're going to talk to you and what the best way that you can approach this and what you can do for that person and with that person more so.
Yeah. And just to tell them, because they may not know, hello, these people, Drew and I both suffered from these things, big time. And now we are recovered and we don't anymore.
Correct.
So we make these videos and we try and help people through recovery of anxiety disorders and panic disorder and agoraphobia and all that. Yeah. And now we're trying to say it to you, to people around them, because that's a kind of big deal as well.
It is. So the people that we address all the time often have this topic that they want to talk about. So the effect of the disorder on their relationships, a marriage or friendships or whatever. So it is a big topic. And I think, so Holly's correct. We've both been down this road for quite a while, and we've both been in the pits of it and the worst of it. And now we're both living very normal lives and trying to help people out. So I think the first thing I'd want to say to people who are watching, who are dealing with somebody who has an anxiety disorder, crippling panic attacks, won't leave the house, keeps canceling plans, can't go to dinner, has 8 zillion different restrictions on how they have to do things so that they're safe, can only go out with you, or don't want to be left alone, all these things, right? So we're not talking about just somebody who's anxious about their career. This is somebody who has an anxiety disorder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We should talk for at least a couple of minutes on what it is and what it isn't. Like the popular misconception or the popular thing in the West, like, oh, I saw a commercial for antidepressant on TV. So just go to your doctor and get a pill and it'll all be better. So we should probably talk about the whole cognitive and behavioral thing.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. so here's the deal, significant other, friend, whoever you happen to be watching, and thanks for watching, by the way. You're doing a good thing. Like, an anxiety disorder is a cognitive and learning problem. These are bad brain habits that your person has gotten into over the years, and it's essentially like a phobia, right? So like, yeah. If you get bit by a dog, you could instantly develop a phobia of dogs.
Yeah.
And so when you have your first panic attack,
yeah.
What happens?
Yeah, it's because it's so intensely scary and it literally is sort of like fear distilled like chemically through your body to make you it makes you feel like the most scared you've ever been, but you don't know what you're even scared of. Mm-hmm. And it's such a scary thing to go through that you never want to go through it again, that you develop a phobia of it happening again. And that is panic disorder in its simplest form, right?
Correct. So many people, in fact, if you're watching, you may have had a panic attack or two in your life, just that for you never developed the anxiety disorder. So Yeah, a panic attack is about the scariest thing you can encounter without actually being in danger, because you
Yeah.
aren't this person, this person is really okay, but they don't know that. That fear is every bit as real to them as if they were having an actual heart attack or a stroke, or they were dying, or going insane, or if somebody was holding a gun to their head. That fear is every bit as real to them, and it is real fear. It's just triggered at the wrong time. It's essentially the fight or flight response triggered at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And it's such a bad experience that this person begins to fear the next time it happens, and that's when it becomes a disorder. So all the hallmarks. When was your first panic attack? Let's talk about that for a second. Do you remember where it happened?
Yeah, I was just at home. I was 11 years old, and I was at home watching TV with my parents in the evening in November, and just out of nowhere, I had a panic attack. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was just the worst thing that had ever happened, and I didn't know what it was or what was happening. Or I mean, you just feel like you're dying and going mad, and it's just yeah,
Yeah. It's
it's
horrible.
just insanely awful. Yeah.
It is horrible. So we'll use terms like that. We always tell the actual sufferer, like, stop saying it's horrible. Like, we
Yeah.
always say that to them. But to you, if you're watching your
They're
husband or
talking to
whoever.
us, we all know already. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But I mean, it is a horrible experience. It's an experience nobody would ever choose to go through.
Especially when you don't know what it is, when
Correct.
it first comes and you don't know what it is, and you never knew what a panic attack was, or that this is what it is that's happening to you. It is really, really scary.
Yeah.
And the fact that it sort of can come out of the blue like that is just,
Yeah. Yeah. It's really difficult to go through.
shocking.
And so
Yeah.
it's such a bad experience that many people, and some people have a panic attack and just go on with their lives. And we don't know why one person does and another one doesn't. We don't know that. But what we do know is that some people have that first panic attack and immediately begin to worrying about it happening again. So my guess is that, usually one of two things: either you sort of don't care, but then it happens the second time and now you care, or even the first time it happens, you start to worry that it will happen again.
Yeah.
And when you start, I know you talked about struggles with being in school. So the way it develops into lifestyle modification is wherever those symptoms of panic hit, you start to become afraid of being in those situations. So if it happens while you're in the car, you don't want to drive the car anymore. If it happens while you're in the supermarket, you do not want to go to the supermarket anymore. You had issues with school, I would imagine, when you were young, correct?
Yeah, because I mean, when it happened to me, it sort of seemed so intense, and I was so young and didn't really understand anything. And it appeared to me like I had a panic attack that lasted 9 months. Obviously, I didn't, because it's physically impossible. But I was just in this heightened state of, like, very frequent panic attacks. So I couldn't go to, like, I mean, just the idea, I couldn't leave my house. I could,
Right.
but I couldn't.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so I didn't go to school, and I was so worried. My big fear was that people would see me having a panic attack, because I was sort of like freaking out and crying and, like, grabbing my face, and,
Yeah.
I appeared like I was insane.
Right.
But so I didn't want anyone to see me like that. So I just stayed in the house, and didn't leave. And
that's the natural progression. So a panic attack is that fight or flight response triggered at the wrong time. It's incredibly scary, even though there's no reason to be scared. That's true. And you know that your husband or wife is okay, but they don't know that at the time. And then the disorder happens when you become afraid of the next one. And panic disorder then you start to modify your lifestyle. So like Holly said, she didn't want to leave the house for various reasons. Some people don't want to leave the house, or can't go into certain situations, or can't do it alone because they're afraid. They're still afraid of those feelings, and they believe the danger to still be real. That's why I'm saying it's a cognitive and a learning problem. It's not a body problem. It's a mind problem. So they still interpret those issues. They still interpret their heart pounding or sweating or feeling a little dizzy as actually dangerous. And you're right. And so what are the most common things that, you'll hear them say? It feels like I'm going, I almost did this. I almost passed out. It felt like I was going to die. It felt like I was going crazy. And meanwhile, for you, the significant other, the friend who doesn't have this problem, you're saying, like, no, you're not going to die. You didn't pass out. You're not going to pass out. You never pass out.
You're just having a panic attack.
Right. And that makes sense, because that's rational and that's correct. But to the person who is actually experiencing these panic attacks or these heightened states of anxiety, it's they will avoid those situations, and their world starts to get smaller and smaller, and they start to modify things and avoid more and more and more, and refuse to do things or require that you be with them to keep them what they think is safe. So a recurring
Yeah,
theme is the safe
I think,
person.
yeah,
Yeah,
the safe person. That's
the
a big
safe
one.
person.
I would say there's a few branches that people go down. One is that like their world gets smaller because maybe like me, it was probably more like a social anxiety, like
Right.
sort of social anxiety based, where I didn't want people to see me having such a bad time, you know.
Hmm.
So I could stay at home, and I was having panic attacks wherever I was. There wasn't certain triggers for me. It was just like all the time or
Yeah.
whatever or randomly. But
Right.
I would feel better at home because then at least no one would see me like freaking out, you know.
Yeah.
And then for other people, when they feel the symptoms, that they have like a health anxiety and they're convinced that it's not just a panic attack, that it's actually something that they're having a heart attack, or they're going to have a seizure or a stroke, or they're
Right.
going to pass out or whatever. So they think that there's something really wrong with them, and so it makes them more scared, and
Yes.
and then they go down that route. And then the other one is that like people have triggers that sort of cause their panic, and they're so scared of how they feel when they panic that they just try and avoid all of the triggers. And
Yes.
sometimes, I mean, to me, it was probably like a combination of all of them as well.
It is. It is.
But like they're the sort of like main sort of branches, I would say. I might be missing some, but like
No,
so
that's
then
about
there's the
right.
triggers. And so like, oh, I don't want to go. So that's why you sometimes get like the safe person as well, because like maybe they were on their own when they had a panic attack, and so they think that if they're with someone then they'll be okay, or
Yeah.
that if they're worried that they're going to have like a heart attack, at least if someone's with them they can take them to the hospital, and this kind of
Correct.
stuff.
Correct. And I think that's why the safe person, and that's why it's such a strange myriad of, we see people who can't leave the house, or people who only want to leave the house. People who develop the strangest safe zones, if you will. So people with advanced panic disorder that starts to lead to things like agoraphobia, which can also lead to something called monophobia, where that person is
Yeah,
afraid to be alone. It's all based on being afraid of something they don't need to be afraid of. And either you're afraid that you're going to look foolish while this is happening, like Holly's issue was primarily. My issue was the being afraid of how it felt. Like I thought I really needed help or rescuing. Like
yeah,
I'm going to need an ambulance. I'm going to need an ER. I'm going to die. Like the most common fears that come along with a panic attack are death and mental incapacitation. Right.
yeah.
Like I'm either going to die or literally go insane. Like the person literally thinks they're going to go insane.
My uncle used to have it when he was younger, and he wouldn't be left in a room by himself when he was having a panic attack because he was so scared that he would disappear and that no one would be able to see him, and they'd all be sort of like talking, and he'd be like, I'm here, I'm here. And they'd be like, oh, where is he?
So
I mean, it's so stupid,
I
but like
know
to him, that was like a
that
real.
was a real fear. Yeah. I mean, I have, and believe me, so this is something I have been doing. I've been podcasting on this for 4 or 5 years now. And before that, spent many, many years interacting online with people who deal with this. And I've heard the best one ever. But these are real. So if you're watching this because your husband or wife or someone important to you is dealing with this, like this is real. I actually interacted with somebody years ago whose fear was that gravity would stop working.
Oh
That
my God.
And that
That's
was, yes, like how far out there is that? And if you're watching it now, and we could look as rational people, and even most people with panic disorder and agoraphobia would say, okay, that is way out there. But to this person, that was a very real fear. It was as real to them as like, uh-oh, I might, stub my toe, or I might get a cold or the flu. Like we all would think we can get the flu. That's a possible thing that can happen. This person truly had themselves convinced that, well, gravity could turn off, and what will happen? Like we'll all die. So like there's an obsessional component to the anxiety complex. Usually some form of OCD comes along with it, whether it's irrational, obsessive, intrusive thoughts that fuel this avoidance and safety behaviors, or there's a bunch of stuff. And honestly, your person might not, as good as your relationship might not even be telling you all the stuff that they're
yeah.
thinking and afraid of, because in their rational moments, they understand like, oh boy, I can't tell anybody this. This is too far out there. So Holly's uncle was afraid that he would disappear, and I knew a woman who was afraid that gravity was going to turn off. So this is real. This is a real thing. So, and I think just to sum that up, because we spent 15 minutes on what it is, and I think that's super important. Yeah. Like, to sum it up, Like this is that thing where the person is afraid of how they feel and what they think. So the most effective approach we know of is not to try and stop them from feeling it and thinking it. Like, which is the traditional way that we do it in the West, which is you go to your doctor and he or she gives you a pill, a tranquilizer to calm you down, and an antidepressant, and they tell you have a chemical imbalance. And in the end, that is no more effective. And it comes with a slew of problems and side effects as the behavioral and cognitive approach that we're talking about here. Like, it is by far, hands down, no question, mountains and mountains of decades of evidence that the cognitive behavioral approach to this is the best approach, longest lasting, best, no side effects. But as we're going to talk about now, your person has to do some very hard work.
Really hard work.
Yeah. And scary has to do things that are intentionally very scary for them. So let's move on to like, how do you deal with this?
So let me just explain the cognitive behavioral thing is that, so just quickly, the idea is that thinking, feeling and behaviors are all interlinked and they all kind of affect each other. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very hard to say to someone like, well, just stop feeling scared, because you just can't really just change the way you feel about something like that. And it's very difficult even to change your thoughts quickly, you know, like, so we'll just stop thinking those things. But what is very easy to change is your behaviors, easy to a degree, you know.
Right.
It's your behaviors, the things you actually do. And so the idea is that if you change the things you do when you are anxious, mm-hmm. you in turn, it affects over time, it in turn like affects the way you feel and the way you think about stuff. And so that's how sort of like the approach really goes, is that that those three things sort of affect each other. And it's very hard to just change your feelings and change your thinking, but you can change your behavior. So.
That's true. So like the basis of it is when your person, I'm going to keep calling them your person, when your husband, wife, or whoever, your friend, when they're feeling okay, reasonably okay and rational, they can work on, how do I change my thinking? Let me look at those thought patterns, learn to identify the negative thoughts or the triggering thoughts and understand what they are. And they can think rationally and work rationally through the thinking part. But when the shit hits the fan, for, you know, in plain English, all that goes out the window. And now the best you could do is learn to not react the way you've always reacted. So the best way to do that is, if you have a phobia of dogs, I think people understand this. Like if you were trying to get over a phobia of dogs, you would probably sit down when you're feeling good and learn about dogs and learn how safe they are and learn, you know, their social interactions and what makes them okay, and how to identify an aggressive dog. You would do all that studying part. But when you get in a room with a dog, you lose it, you freak out. And the only way that you can get over that fear is to stop freaking out. Just be calm and, like, in a methodical way, begin to get closer and closer to that dog. Right.
Dog, or get closer to the dog. Yeah.
Correct. So this is all about like learning the thought things and working on that, but also slowly and methodically actually going into the situations that you've learned to be afraid of, so that you can learn that you don't need to be afraid of them. There you go.
Yeah.
Worked. To prop the phone up on like your coffee cup. So that's the cognitive behavioral model that says you start to work on changing your thoughts and your behaviors and your reaction to the fear. So the number one thing we're gonna say to you right now is understand that this person, their job is now to go directly into the fear instead of running from it, and to surrender to it and not fight it, because they must
explain why.
Yeah, and I think that's that experiential learning thing that says the only way to not be afraid of a panic attack is to let it do the worst thing that person thinks it's going to do, so that their brain literally learns through experience, which is the best way that we learn as human beings, that it didn't happen. And then you do that again and again and again. And over time, the brain understands like, oh, that is really uncomfortable and I don't like it, but I don't have to be afraid of it.
Yeah, because what's really important for everyone to realize is that the person suffering anxiety, every time they react with fear to their panic attack, to their anxiety, to the thoughts that they're having, all they're doing is feeding the anxiety even more, because the adrenaline works in the way that your body's like flooding with adrenaline to make you able to physically like run or fight or whatever, because it thinks that you're like a literal like physical danger. It's like from the old like caveman sort of like days.
Right.
And so because it's been triggered at the wrong time, and so they're feeling all this, and it makes you feel kind of weird, as if like, because it cuts off blood to your stomach and it puts more blood into your muscles, and so you can feel shaky, sweaty, all those symptoms that you get, and it can make you feel really like weird and like out of yourself. And every time you react with fear to that, like, oh my God, I feel awful, this is awful, because your brain like says like, oh, you're really, really scared, you must therefore, like, fear must equal danger, because you wouldn't be scared if you weren't in danger. So you must still be in danger. So I'm going to keep sending you adrenaline. I'm going to keep you in this, like, in this response, so that you can definitely get away from the danger. Of course, the more it sends you and the more you like react with fear to it, the more it keeps sending. And that's like the fear cycle that we all get trapped into.
That's true.
And so we are like, the person suffering is keeping themselves stuck by reacting every single time they're reacting with fear. And what they have to do is break that cycle and not be scared of it. And that's the bit where it's hard, like, well, just don't be scared of it. Like, yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah, it sounds easy to say. That's exactly right. And so as the rational person, like the person who doesn't have panic, the husband, the wife, whoever you are, yes, it's super easy to just say, oh, that sounds so easy, just don't be afraid. But it doesn't work that way. So the way your person has to do this is, when those feelings hit, they have to actually do the exact opposite. So this is almost always about doing the opposite of what they want to do. Like, they want to run, they want to call for help, they want to distract themselves, they want to fight and tense and push it away and try and stop and sit there and go, I'm okay, and argue with the irrational, crazy thoughts that they're having. But that's not what you do, because that says, when I do these things, when I snap a rubber band or drink water or eat mints, or they call you for help and want to talk, please help me, I'm having a panic attack, please talk to me. When they do that, they are actually reinforcing the mistaken belief that that phone call saved them from some horrible fate, but it didn't. Yeah. So the person has to understand that even if they did nothing but lay still and breathe all alone in the middle of the desert on a boat in the middle of the ocean, they would still be okay. They need to learn that, and they only learn that through experience and letting the worst thing happen, because it doesn't happen. So this is the process that they have to go through. And so, like, how do you, let me just, a little programming note while we're at it. So Holly, we didn't plan this out so well. We're 22 minutes into this. Maybe this has to be multiple videos. We've talked a lot about what it is and the mechanics, which I think people need to understand.
So now this would be what you do as the person around the person.
Right. So, like, this is what it is. This is what this person is going through. This is what it's not a go get a pill. It's not a go to the doctor. It's not a eat more. It's not stop drinking coffee. It's not any of these things. This is a learning and cognitive thing. And the person has to start going into fear to learn experientially that they don't have to be afraid. And maybe the next video has to be like, okay, then what should you be doing? Because this is going to get super long. All right, so that's fine. So stick with us. We'll wrap this one up, I think, and then we'll do another one maybe right away if you have the time on how. So people don't have to watch an hour worth of video. So so now that we know what the person has to do, which is crazy hard. Yeah, they have to do the opposite of what they want to do. They want to go into the fear instead of avoiding and away from the fear, and they
manageable steps. It must be.
Right. Thank you.
Well.
Yeah, why don't you expound on that a little bit, because I think that's important to say. Like, it's not
like you can't just now be like, oh, well, you haven't left the house in 6 months, so like, but you have to go into the fear. So come on, into the car. Let's go down the shopping mall. Like, no. That's way too much. It has to be in small, manageable steps.
Correct.
Otherwise, it's called flooding, right? And it just has like the opposite sort of.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so I think, the other thing that we should add to that is, even when, and your husband, wife, whoever it is, they may have just stumbled upon this, because most people don't even know about this. They just know they have this thing. They think it's an external problem. It's a mental illness. It's this thing happening to them.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's really not. And it's cured. I will use the word cure, but people get over this. Millions and millions and millions of people all over the world get over this every year. Like, it's happening right now. There are people who used to have crippling agoraphobia that are living normal lives. You're seeing two of them right now. So So small manageable steps is one thing, and you have to understand this is new to them. Maybe like I have to do what? I have to actually walk down the block by myself. Like that seems crazy to them or incredibly scary. Or like, why would you make me do that? Because it's like they're being asked to walk into actual danger. They don't understand yet possibly that they're not. Like nobody's asking them to do anything actually dangerous. So they have to get their brain around that task, I think, and understand that has to be broken into manageable pieces. And the one thing, maybe segueing into what the next video is going to be, that you always have to remember is that the person is experiencing the fear that they are experiencing is every bit as real as you would experience in the scariest possible situation you can imagine. Right. Yeah. So if you have never had a panic attack or you've had them, but they're no big deal and you don't have agoraphobia, but your wife does or your husband or your sister does or whoever in your life, just imagine suddenly finding yourself where your chest hurts and you can't breathe and you are having what you are convinced is a fatal heart attack, as an example. Like, how would that make you feel? That is how your husband, wife, sister, brother, friend feels when this happens. And
or like there's a gun being pulled on them, like, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly how they feel. So if you take anything away from this, it's that fear is real, yet it's an irrational fear and it needs to be uncovered as such. So it's not a quick fix. It's not a pull yourself together, all the things we hear people say.
But it is completely recoverable. I don't think that's a word, but whatever the word is.
It is. It is completely and utterly recoverable, I think. And if you look at this problem that your special person is having as a bad brain habit, as opposed to continually looking for what can you swallow, what can you change in your diet. We've heard all of these things. You just need some fresh air. You need to get out. You need to have a few beers. You need to have, we've heard all of these things. Oh, you're eating too much sugar. Sugar is poison. It's giving you anxiety. No, you got to abandon all of those things. That is not what this is. I mean, will caffeine make somebody a little bit jittery? Sure, it will, but it's not too much caffeine that's causing this problem. This is not a body problem. The body thing is just the symptom of the problem. So that's what it is. Do you think we missed anything trying to explain what's going on? Because I think for a lot of significant others and fans, friends and family, this is new information. They would have never thought of it this way. We hear this all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband, my wife just doesn't understand, thinks I should just get it together. Like, why can't I just do what I have to do? Well, this is why they can't do what they have to do.
Yeah. So what we're going to be asking you to do is like a weird middle ground between being very understanding and sympathetic, but being quite hard and helpful, as opposed to coddling and enabling the anxiety, which is a lot of the time what ends up happening.
Correct.
Or either people end up enabling by being too helpful to do, doing what the people ask them to do for them all the time.
Yeah.
And that actually just enables their anxiety, or they're just too harsh and too distant and cold and just go, pull yourself together, you stupid person, because there's nothing there, and it's just we're going to ask you somewhere in there's a middle ground that's very, very good.
Yeah, I think in this second video that we're going to do, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to kind of teach you how to toe that line between supportive, but really what you're going to be is you're going to become a cheerleader. And you're going to become a source of inspiration. You're actually going to become a model for that person. Because we often tell these people who suffer with this, just let your husband or wife, don't be angry that he wants you to go to dinner. Let him model that behavior for you. So, so you will become a model. You will become a cheerleader. You'll become a supporter. Sometimes you're a shoulder to cry on, but sometimes it's okay. Remember what this is. Remember what's going on here. And remember what you have to do and go do it. And I'll be here waiting for you when you get back and, I'll root you on. That's what you're going to become more than anything else. So, we'll bring it on the next video.
Got a call. I don't know if it's
No, you were fine. I didn't even notice. Yeah. And I think the other thing we'll talk about, maybe we'll just talk about in the next video, is what your special person's responsibility is in this. They have a responsibility too. So they have to acknowledge that these are bad brain habits and they're not really sick and that they can fix it. And if they can acknowledge that and take responsibility and commit to doing the work, then you have to become a cheerleader and a supporter and on all of those things in a special kind of way. So we'll talk about that in part 2. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So thanks for watching. It sounds so weird because we're just going to go right into part two, probably, but we'll assume that you're watching at some other time. Who knows? And I guess if you want to know more, I mean, if you're watching with whoever this person is in your life, they've already found us. So they know the Facebook group and they know my website and they know all that stuff. So just see what they've been, watch some videos with them and see what they're going through. I think they'd really appreciate it. They really would.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for stopping in. We'll see you on the next version of this. Hang in there.
Bye.
Bye. Hit the stop recording. Awkward stop. Hey, what's up, guys? Drew here. In the 5 years that I've done the podcast, I've never had a sponsor. But now it's time for me to put in a little plug for the day job, the business that I own. And that business is managed WordPress hosting. So if you have a website and it runs WordPress, and you'd like WordPress hosting that makes WordPress faster, more secure, and way easier than you ever imagined it would be, then check out Helix. You can find us online at imhelix.com. That's IAMHELIX.com. We took a long time to build Helix. I'm super proud of it. It works spectacularly. We take really good care of our customers, and I promise we would take really good care of you too. So if you're in the market for WordPress hosting that will blow your mind, check out Helix. I would appreciate the consideration. I thank you for coming by and listening, and I'll see you the next time.